this is Suzanne for Rainbow Loom. Today I'll be showing you how to make the triple single backpack tag. This is a beginner level design. To make this backpack tag, you will need 54 A colored rubber bands, 24 B colored bands, 11 C colored bands, a lobster clasp or key ring or carabiner, something to attach to a backpack, and your C-clip. It's a good idea to have your supplies ready before you begin, so pause the video here until you're ready to follow along. Now, let's get started. Place your loom so that the red arrow is pointing away from you. To make the backpack tag, we'll be placing 2 A colored bands at a time along the left side of the loom. We'll start from the center pin, grab 2 of our A colored bands and place those from the center pin out to the left, and then we place 2 more from where that ended, going up the left side of the loom. We try not to leave the bands twisted if you're placing 2 at a time. If you're having trouble placing 2 at a time, you can place 1 and then 1 over that. That might help keep them straighter. So we continue placing our bands up the left side of the loom. I'll fast forward from here. You'll stop at the second to the last row and you'll place the last 2 bands into the center pin. Then return to the beginning of the loom and start placing 2 bands at a time along the right side of the loom. This is just like the other side. So we'll fast forward from here until you reach the end of the loom. And again, we stop at the second to last pin and place the last 2 bands into the center pin. Then we return to the beginning of the loom. And starting from the center pin, we'll place 2 B colored bands at a time going up the center of the loom. We place these one over the other in a single chain. So we'll fast forward from here until we reach the end of the loom. The last 2 go into the center pin, and then we start to push our bands down to get ready to place the next bands on the loom. Now place 11 C colored bands in the shape of triangles along the center of the loom. We'll start from the second row and we'll place a band around all pins in that second row to form a triangle. It will look like that. Then we go to the third row and we place the band around all third row pins to form this triangle. We move our way up the loom, forming a triangle on each row. We'll fast forward from here until we reach the end of the loom. And then the last triangle is placed like that. Now we're ready to start looping the bands. Turn your loom so that the red arrow is pointing toward you. On this pin, you'll place your backpack tag, like that. The first band that we'll loop will be a bee-colored band, and we'll pull that forward. You grab both of the bands and bring that forward. Then we'll continue looping up the center of the loom, grabbing the two bee-colored bands at a time and bringing those forward. So each time you're just reaching down into the hole, grabbing the two bee-colored bands and pulling those forward. And after you pull those last bee-colored bands to the center, you return to the beginning of the loom. And we'll loop the A-colored bands up the left side of the loom. So you grab the top two A-colored bands on this first pin, and you pull those out to the left. This part gets a little tricky. You have to pull all the bands above the bottom two A bands. You pull these back. Then you use your hook to grab those and pull those forward. This next one should be a little bit more obvious what we're doing. Pay attention to the white band. You pull all the bands above the A-colored bands back. Then you grab your A-colored bands and pull them forward. As I loop the next band, I want you to pay attention to the white triangle shape and see what happens. You're pulling all the bands above the band that you're looping back. You cannot grab it underneath and loop over that, or the bands will not connect with one another. You must be pulling these bands back. Then grab that band and pull it through that band and loop it forward. I only grabbed one of those, so we're going to grab both. The next one, you're pulling all the bands above the A band back with your hook. Then you slide your hook forward and bring those bands to the forward pin. You're pulling back, grabbing, and looping. Back, grabbing, pulling, and looping. I'm going to loop this next band wrong just so you can see what it will look like. So if I grab the bands underneath and pull forward, look at how that looks versus the correct way. So I'll bring these bands back. You kind of grab them with your hook, lift them off, and put them back on the pin. And then if you want to get your bands back in order, you kind of do this twisting around the pin, and all your bands do get back in order. Now I'll go back and loop this band correctly. Pull all the bands back with your hook, grab the A-colored bands, and pull them forward. There, I grabbed only one of those. I need to make sure I'm grabbing two. So there, both of those bands were pulled forward. Pull the bands back and loop your A band through them. Pull them back, loop your A band through that. Make sure you're pulling both bands forward. And this last one, you pull them into the center pin. Then we return to the beginning. Now we'll loop the right side. Start from the center pin, grab those bands. Notice how you're pulling those around your key ring. All of these bands have now, they're all wrapped around your key ring. We'll loop this band forward with your hook. Pull all the bands above those bottom two A bands back with your hook. Grab those, pull them forward, and loop them. Again, watch the A band. This is where most of the problems with looping occur, is this band is not being pulled back when this band is being looped through it. If you do not do that, the bands will not connect with one another. So we'll continue this looping process up the right side of the loom, and we'll fast forward from here. And we'll pull this last one into the center. And there we've completed looping all of the bands. Now that we've finished looping the bands, we're ready to finish the backpack tag. Pull all of the bands on this last pin up to the top. There are a lot of them. Slide your hook down through the channel and tilt it out to the side. Make sure that all the bands are around your hook. Now on this one, we'll place 2 A-colored bands on the end of that hook. Pull back, then slide your hook up through that channel, and then slide it through those bands so that you have each end of the rubber band up on your hook. Then carefully move those bands to the thickest part of your hook. Then with your fingers, pull these bands and remove them from the loom. Now we're almost done with the backpack tag. We just have the end to complete here. If you would like, you can just attach your C-clip to this, and then your backpack tag is complete. If you would like to add a little extension, I'll show you that process right now. Similar to how we used beads, you push your band through a pony bead, and you can place that on one side of your loom, and then do that again. If you're not clear on how to add the beads, you can watch the bead ladder instruction, and that goes in greater detail on how to place the beads on your bands. So I'm only going to add 3 extensions here. On this last pin, I'm going to stretch the bands from the backpack tag from that pin to the one behind it. So I pull my hook away, slide my fingers into those bands, and then I'm going to stretch those from the last pin to the one behind it, and then loop these bands in a single chain. Then on this last band, pull that out to the center pin, and this creates an area where I can attach the C-clip. Hold your C-clip with the open side facing forward and snap your C-clip on that, and then you can remove it from the loom. And there you have your finished backpack tag.